Hey folks, before we dive in, just a quick reminder. If you want to stay ahead of the curve with breaking stories like this, make sure to follow S News. It really helps us out if you subscribe, like, and drop a comment below. Your support keeps us going, so thanks a lot. Tensions explode. Khamenei admits to coup. 4 US aircraft carriers surround Iran and NATO opens fire. The global front is heating up fast. The Democratic Alliance is moving quickly to surround the authoritarian axis, stretching from the Middle East to Eastern Europe. Suddenly, Iran's supreme leader spoke out. And for the first time, Israel publicly admitted it is working to establish a Ziran government, an announcement that shocked the Middle East. At the same time, 4 massive US aircraft carriers appeared around Iran from all directions, effectively placing the country under an unprecedented military encirclement. In the Pacific, US carriers joined NATO forces in a show of strength, not just aimed at Iran, but also sending a clear warning to Beijing and Moscow. Meanwhile, in Europe, plans were finalized to deploy Western troops to Ukraine. Everything is in place. Only a launch order is needed to turn the conflict with Russia into a full-scale counter-offensive. On the intelligence front, Ukraine launched a surprise cyber-attack that wiped out key strategic data from a major Russian energy company. This paralyzed part of Russia's national infrastructure and created confusion among Russian leadership. In another major shock, a high-ranking Russian official secretly defected, taking with him a cache of sensitive Kremlin documents. The information is believed to be significant enough to alter the global situation. What's unfolding now is a confrontation that's becoming impossible to negotiate. The US, Ukraine, Israel and their allies are tightening the noose, gradually isolating what they call the global axis of evil. Here's the full story. Supreme Leader Khamenei admitted that Israel is trying to topple Iran's regime. He claimed that during Israel's latest offensive, their goal was to spark chaos and overthrow the Iranian government. He accused Israel of targeting key figures and sensitive sites to weaken the regime. In a statement on his website, Khamenei referred to a 12-day Israeli air campaign last month. On June 13th, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, hitting major targets in Iran and killing top nuclear scientists. Their aim, he said, was to stir unrest and get people into the streets to overthrow the regime. In response, Iran launched a third wave of attacks, firing drones and missiles into Israeli territory. On June 22nd, the US deployed B-2 bombers and warships to strike Iran's Natanz nuclear facility. 2 days earlier, Iranian missiles from Fars and Isfahan were launched at the US Judaydat air base in Qatar, allegedly in response to the destruction of a radar dome. 2 days later, a ceasefire was declared between Iran and Israel to allow US intervention. The 12-day war left over 900 dead and 4,700 wounded in Iran, and 28 killed with more than 2,500 injured in Israel. Khamenei warned that if the enemy continues to provoke, Iran's next response will be more painful than anything seen in the last conflict. He also confirmed Iran's missile strike on the Judaydat base in Qatar, calling it one of the US's most sensitive regional facilities. He praised Iran's readiness to confront the combined power of the US and Israel. During the conflict, Khamenei was believed to be in a secure location. In a speech after the ceasefire, he claimed Iran had struck both Israel and the US and made it clear Iran would not surrender. Nuclear talks between the US and Iran stalled when the fighting broke out. Iran has expressed willingness to resume diplomacy, but only if the US agrees not to take military action against Tehran. On May 16th, Iran's parliament rejected talks without certain preconditions, although those conditions were not specified.
The 12-day war really shifted the dynamics in the region. Iran's willingness to escalate and the US response have left both sides more entrenched than ever. There's a sense that, unless major concessions are made, we might just be looking at the beginning of a much larger conflict.
Now, 4 United States aircraft carrier strike groups have surrounded Iran, placing it under what some folks are calling a maritime siege, a scenario we really haven't seen since the Iraq War.
According to U.S. Central Command, the carriers include USS Orford, positioned in the Mediterranean west of Iran, USS Joint Honor near the Red Sea south of Iran, USS Ronald Reagan moving through the Arabian Sea toward the Gulf of Oman, and USS Theodore Roosevelt now in the Persian Gulf just hundreds of kilometers off Iran's coast.
Together, these strike groups carry over 250 fighter jets, dozens of destroyers and submarines, and advanced air defense systems, creating, well, an overwhelming presence in both air and sea.
This isn't a drill. This is a strategic message to Tehran. Any reckless move involving nuclear weapons or otherwise will have serious consequences.
Non-conventional weapons are now being described in direct relation to the threat of dirty bombs and planned attacks on Israel. And this all comes shortly after reports surfaced that Iran is developing nuclear weapons and plotting strikes on Israeli targets in the Middle East. At the same time, Iran's deployment of hypersonic missiles and the strengthening of its air force in Syria's Hasaka province have forced the Pentagon to shift its defense posture to a state of active deterrence.
According to Western intelligence sources, the U.S. has deployed logistics ships, troop carriers, and military transport aircraft to bases in Qatar, the UAE, and Jordan.
The simultaneous presence of 4 U.S. aircraft carriers in the region is unprecedented. That only happens when the U.S. is preparing for or already ready to launch a large-scale attack.
Iran has also raised the alert level of all its air defense and missile units. Every move from here on could reshape the entire Middle East. In the Pacific, US and NATO allies are showing off their military might. Joint drills have brought together American and British aircraft carriers and warships, demonstrating, the power of the allied navies.
These exercises took place in the Timor Sea, north of Australia, under the framework of Talisman Sabre 2025. This show of force follows China's deployment of 2 aircraft carriers in the Western Pacific in June.
Images released by the US military show the USS George Washington working alongside the USS Robert Smalls and the USS Shear as part of a strike group.
On May 18th, the British aircraft carrier HMS Prince of Wales was operating in the Timor Sea, accompanied by the destroyer AMS, the fuel frigate RFA Tinder Spring, the Australian destroyer AMS Sydney, the Norwegian frigate MHS Rono US, and the Canadian frigate AMCS Violet. American aircraft, including F-35C stealth fighters, were also seen flying above both American and British carrier groups. The HMS Prince of Wales was reportedly carrying over 20 F-35B fighters.
The US Navy stated that Talisman Sabre is its largest bilateral exercise with Australia, meant to strengthen a free and open Indo-Pacific through tighter cooperation with key allies and partners.
The British Royal Navy confirmed that the USS George Washington Carrier Group coordinated with the British Carrier Group in dual operations near Australia, Timor-Leste, and Indonesia. Earlier, the US also deployed the amphibious assault ship USS America, which operates F-35B jets, for the same drills. On January 16th, the ship was seen conducting air operations in the Coral Sea northeast of Australia.
The George Washington is one of the US Navy's forward-deployed carriers based in Japan. While near Australia, a nuclear-powered US icebreaker also patrolled the South China Sea. Meanwhile, the HMS Prince of Wales has been leading a naval task force on an 8-month mission since April. It's expected to visit Japan later this summer. A plan to deploy 2 European military forces to Ukraine is now complete and just waiting for the final political green light. For the first time since the Second World War, Europe is on the brink of a major military decision. A senior NATO source told Fast News that the deployment plan is ready and only awaiting final approval. The force includes special operations troops, infrastructure protection units, and military advisors from France, Poland, Germany, and several Baltic states.
Logistics are in place. Supply lines, air routes, and deployment paths have all been approved. If ordered, the troops can be on the ground in Ukraine within 48 to 72 hours.
The trigger here is that Russia has crossed the red line and Ukraine needs direct protection. Analysts say Russia's use of advanced weapons, long-range cruise missiles, hypersonic missiles, and strikes near NATO borders has pushed the alliance to consider tougher responses. French President Emmanuel Macron has repeatedly mentioned the possibility of action. It's believed that the Ukraine deployment will be a key factor in Europe's final decision. While this mission is not a combat deployment, it's under immense pressure. A NATO General Staff source said the forces will not directly engage Russian troops, but will be stationed in critical areas such as Kharkiv, Odessa, and other frontline regions to support logistics, training, air defense and intelligence monitoring. Still, experts warn that any NATO military presence inside Ukraine could be seen by Moscow as a hostile act, bringing Europe dangerously close to direct conflict. The situation is shifting by the hour. If the deployment is approved, it would mark a turning point in the war not seen since May 2022. Ukrainian intelligence hacks Russian energy giant. Ukrainian cyber experts from the country's military intelligence agency, AUR, launched a massive cyber attack on Gazprom, Russia's state-owned energy giant. The attack, which took place on January 17th, reportedly targeted internal systems used by Gazprom and its subsidiaries. Ukrainian media accused the company of directly supporting Russia's military campaign in Ukraine. The attack destroyed large volumes of data and installed malicious software aimed at further damaging the company's internal systems. Russian sources claimed that around 20,000 system administrators lost access to Gazprom's internal network. Backups of important databases were also wiped. Roughly 390 affiliated companies were affected, including Gazprom Telenergo, Gazprom of Energo and Gazprom Energet. The Ukrainian agency AUR claimed the attack disabled core servers running a system called 1C, used for managing documents, contracts, pipeline operations and SCADA systems essential to the company's infrastructure. It also allegedly destroyed the BOS software used to operate many of the devices, making them inoperable without physical repairs. Neither Gazprom nor Russian authorities have publicly commented. Independent verification of these claims has not been possible. Russian tech tycoon defects with Kremlin secrets. A major figure in Russia's tech industry has fled the country, triggering panic in the Kremlin. Shad Masovsky, a billionaire with deep access to high-level digital infrastructure and government systems, is believed to have defected. According to Russian economist and blogger VyazJFCF, Masovsky's defection is linked to a major power struggle inside the elite. Previously arrested on charges of corruption and bribery, Masovsky apparently fled after being warned by insiders. Now hiding in a foreign country, he is rumored to possess sensitive data tied to Kremlin digital systems. The CIA and other intelligence services are reportedly preparing to receive critical information.
I was heavily involved in building Russia's digital infrastructure, including government data centers, security systems, and digital administration tools, projects backed by powerful Russian figures, including Zori Kovachus from the Prime Minister's office. I also worked with Blumti, a digital and financial platform supported by influential people like former presidential chief of staff Alexander Vashin and Moscow's deputy mayor Natalia Sigomnina.
Analysts say this isn't just a legal case, it's a major blow to the Kremlin's internal stability. Masovsky's access to sensitive technologies and secure communication networks could pose serious risks to Russian national security. This defection may not be an isolated case. The so-called Kremlin elite is under increasing pressure, and the leaks are getting more dangerous by the day. Finally, at the end of the video, we just want to thank you for listening and encourage you to follow S News and watch our future videos. Don't forget to subscribe, like and comment. We really